Hi everyone, and welcome to our Worried About Nothing podcast today. We thought we would talk about the election, the US election, because it's very topical and it seems to be all that everyone's talking about at the moment. And we might segue onto other topics too. So my name's Kim.
I'm Danielle.
And I'm Katya.
Hi, welcome everyone. So the US election is big news at the moment. It's definitely all that's on social media, all that everyone seems to be talking about. There are so many opinions, so many emotions, so much anger, so much fear. It's probably one of the most divisive elections I've ever been witness to, I think. So yes, definitely very, very topical.
And the media has already declared what the projected president?
They've declared it as a sure thing, and people are already celebrating. There seems to be a lot of gloating back and forth going on. But as we all know, the media doesn't elect the president. So the media are just trying to push that narrative to so many reasons to, I guess, maybe try and get Trump to stand down, trying to get the people who support Biden up in arms. I don't know, just to cause more and more chaos.
They definitely don't want any recounting, so they would rather just go ahead with the results.
Yeah, what makes the most sense to me as to why they're pushing this out is that kind of thing of, okay, so we've given you an answer and this is the answer and everyone can feel comfortable and happy and celebrate so that when the results are overturned, people will be highly emotional about it. Be like, you can't do this, like we won sort of thing. And it's like, well, they told you won, but nothing's been finalized. And there's this really great video from that guy, J.P. Spears. I shared a video on Instagram, and he was talking about how, you give a child a toy and then you take that toy away. And I thought it was a pretty good analogy for what the kind of emotions that could come up and the likely tantrums we're going to see, which I can understand, because if I was under the impression that the media called the election and they declared Donald Trump the winner, I'd probably be pretty pissed off if they turned around and said, no, Biden's the winner, but that's just not the way things work.
Yeah, and it's an ongoing narrative as well, because the press has been so anti-Trump the whole of the past 4 years anyway, that it would be extremely shocking if they suddenly got behind him now, But the funny thing, I saw somebody was writing about how they thought the press was trying to put pressure on Trump to give up. And I thought that was really, really funny, because they've been putting pressure on him for 4 years, if not longer now, to give up. And he hasn't backed down an inch. So why would he do it now? At the 11th hour? It's just insane.
Right. Yeah.
And I don't think that he's reading a lot of hated messages. I don't think he is that kind of person.
Can just feel it, you're not going to back down now after everything else that's been thrown at him. It's like, this is not the time. It's not happening. No. And it's funny because they'll push him to say, to concede the election. Oh, it's called or whatever, but it's not really the case. And as far as I know, Hillary Clinton never conceded the election in 2016. So...
Well, they wanted to do recounting in 2016. I think the Green Party was pushing for that. And this is the main evidence thing against Trump. I don't know what he did in 2016, but of course, because he won, he didn't want to recount, because you don't want to put some bailouts, right? And in this case, he's recounting. So that's the main argument of the left party. It was he was so against recounting, and now he wants the recounting.
That's interesting, because I haven't seen that come up at all through what I've been looking through. But the Green Party wanted a recount?
No, they wanted a recount, yeah.
That's interesting to me, because I would think the party who would be second most likely to win would be the ones who would want a recount. Yeah, I can't imagine that the Green Party got that many votes. I think Gary Johnson on the Libertarian Party even got more votes than Jill Stein, which I believe she was the Green Party candidate. I mean, I could be wrong, but I don't think Jill Stein beat out Gary Johnson.
Well, but I think Green Party would always stand with the left party, right? More closely than the right party anyway. So that makes sense. There is a better support from the left side.
Yeah, I guess so. I don't know much about the Green Party, honestly. So last year was the first year I knew the name of the candidate for the Green Party. So.
Oh, fair enough. But it's interesting. I've seen a conference about that. There was, I don't know, I don't remember exactly the numbers, but how many dead people were voted. Of course.
It was several 100,000 in each state,
How
wasn't
much?
it? Yeah. It was several 100,000 in each state. So it was at least 100,000 to 200,000 dead people suddenly voted very conscientiously 20 years after they died.
Yeah, in one of the states, the attendance was like close to impossible. The probability rate was 0.00000, I think, 1% So it was an impossible probability for such a high attendance. So all of this definitely raises concerns. And what was interesting that Trump numbers didn't move at all while Biden numbers were adding up. And this is the states where he had the biggest support, where Trump had the biggest support. So it just does not make sense.
Yeah, and they suddenly jumped up overnight as well. So it's kind of from 3 o'clock in the morning to 4 o'clock in the morning, suddenly 100,000 people voted. They counted 100,000 people's votes, which is very suspect. Whoever people support or whatever they believe, because there's so much emotion around this and everyone's getting up in arms and there's, a lot of tension and anger and all of that. But just looking at the facts, just calmly, coldly, without emotion, it's all suspect. Whether you support Trump or not, it's very dodgy, some of the things that are happening. So one of the things that's definitely being shown is how corrupt the election system is, not just in the US, but all around the world. Because if this kind of thing can happen and has been happening, it's just being brought to light now, then there's never really been a genuine election. Because if so much corruption can happen and has happened, it's all a farce. It just shows how farcical the whole thing is. I believe that that's one of the purposes of this election, well, in inverted commas, election, is to show how surreal and manipulated and corrupt the whole system is. So whether you want Trump to win or Biden to win, I don't know why you would want Biden to win, but some people seem to. Crazy. But anyway, it's looking at the facts of it. You must start questioning. You have to start going, but hang on a second, this isn't right. This can't be right. This is really strange. There's something dodgy going on here. And I think for me, I feel that's the place to start. If you can put aside your emotion about it and just go, well, no, this is insane. This is crazy.
Yeah.
It's like a joke.
I think a lot of people just choose to believe that it's made up. All of the things that are coming out, they're like, oh, no, it's just not true, sort of thing. Yeah. Like if it was true, wouldn't the media be talking about it? Like different things like that. So,
plus the fact check is there, which is saying that this is not true. This is the votes are being recounted. This is the projected president, and the fact check is now a god where we live. So everyone is believing the fact check. And I've seen several comments where people was like, so you would rather believe, you would rather believe your neighbor telling you something that the fact check that actually has a genuine information and goes and checks it. It's like, yeah, I don't necessarily believe the fact check.
I know, it's insane though, but the whole accumulation of that, the fact that there's media silence on so much, the fact checkers immediately contradict anything that is pro-Trump, even tiny bit. Even if you said, I like his tie. Oh, no, the fact checkers.
Right. They'd be like, actually, we have reason to believe that this tie was made in China by orphan children in a labor camp. So no one should like the tie.
And no, it's not red, it's actually green.
Oh yeah, no, actually it's a different shade of red. It's not really called red and whatever. It's actually a crimson tie. Yeah. That's how nitpicky it gets, right? Fact check false. It's a crimson tie.
But sometimes the fact check, it makes me laugh. Sometimes I'll post something and it'll be fact checked within a split second. It's not even if it was a true fact check and they actually read the post, it would take them longer than it takes for the fact checker to pop up with his message. So it's definitely an automated. Certain words will just trigger it immediately.
Was it a picture or was it something that you said?
It was a picture.
So that's probably because some people already posted it.
Yeah.
Because that's happened to me too. So because some people have posted it already, and then whatever there is, I don't know how maybe they check the name of it. I'm not too sure how they would do that. Or maybe the words, as you said, so it's automatically highlights. For sure. Although I must admit, I think there was something against the quote that Donald Trump never said that is being circulated, but fact check does highlight it as false, which is kind of nice.
Wow.
And I wonder if that they had to go to fact checker and just say, hey, this has never happened, this is false, and eventually, the fact check had no choice but to accept it as being false.
It's just, but it's all just such a joke. I mean, in some ways it's quite amusing. There is so much emotion swirling around. So many people are angry, and the Biden supporters are getting all gloaty. And they're all talking about how Trump is being a big baby and not backing down, while posting things that are very, very childish, like, oh, Trump is whatever it is, but really gloaty kind of kindergarten stuff. It's like, well, you're not exactly being more mature, but anyway, let's just let that one slide. But I mean, it feels to me, it was like Danielle, you were saying earlier, you feel really good at the moment. I mean, it feels to me like it's a big weight is being taken off, and there's so much being uncovered at the moment that it's great. I mean, it's, dirty, and there's a lot of shit going on, and a lot of shit being uncovered, but it feels really light. So it feels like so much is being cleansed, or so much is about to be cleansed, that it's very exciting in a way. I still can feel all the fear that people are sort of radiating out, and the anger and the hostility and all of that. But there's also it feels like a release in that something's broken, something's shifted. So all the muck is now just rising up to the surface, from where it was buried. And it feels like hopefully more and more people will see it and start questioning it. Because I sometimes see posts on social media where people are, doing their gloating about Trump and stuff, and doing their, oh, it's wonderful, Biden's won, and oh, he's got dogs, so he must be a lovely man, that kind of thing, comments like that. You just think, no, Obama had a dog, he was not a nice man, is not a nice man.
Wow, that's true. Actually, I heard that too. It's like, he's the only president who doesn't have a dog. What kind of president he is? I was like, oh, really? So the dog is prerequisite.
Exactly. I mean, like, mass murderers have dogs.
That's crazy.
How funny would it be if, like, once he's sworn in for a second term, he gets a dog? Giving the people what they want.
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
Oh, if you've got an orange dog with fluffy hair, that'd be funny.
That'd be excellent. Holy shit.
Yeah.
One thing I don't understand, how can one vote for Biden? I understand that people don't like Trump's personality. He's loud. In certain cases, he might be considered rude. And there is a bunch of other things, right, about him. I get it. He is not an angel, that's for sure. And the thing is, look at Biden. Look how very well written speeches are done for him. So it's all very polished. I understand people like it. That's how presidents talk, but it's very well written for him. It's not coming from him. That's a big difference. I understand it looks beautiful on the surface, but I would highly recommend people who actually support Biden to watch a documentary called Riding the Dragon, and it's the Biden Chinese Secrets. So it's a documentary. If people still watch Netflix, it's available there, or you can go and check it on YouTube. It's also available there. It just shows up all the connections with China, although people also, I'm talking with some connections about Russia. But this documentary specifically talks about how they want to become good friends with China, and how Biden said, well, there is no threat from China. At the same time, they're taking big money from them. It's just, you can see how corrupt this person is. Sure, he might be smiling nice. Sure, he might look more calm. And to the viewers, it's something that they have a representation of the image of the president. But the corruption says it all. Okay, you might say there is some corruption on the Trump side because, I'm sure I haven't really watched a lot of the news about it, but of course something has to come out through the news. But there is nothing nearly severe to the same extent as it is with Biden. And I still don't understand. And some people are not aware of it for some reason. Because the news doesn't cover too much. They just cover, there is a huge support. And particularly in Canada, it's ridiculous, actually. There was some Canadians who were watching all night long because they were in a huge support of Biden. And of course, that Trudeau was, I believe, the first president who rushed to congratulate Biden. So it just shows that everything is swinging to the left side. Although some other presidents, like an example, a Mexican president, he said, no, I'll hold on because we don't have the final results yet, so I'll wait until we see the final results. So it's definitely a huge divide. And in a way, it's sad because the more the divide is, the more there is a possibility, as Danielle earlier said, that, there might be more violence on the streets. And you take either one side or another. And the same I feel about Trump, that he's very much, you either love or hate him. There's no middle ground. Although there is maybe a few people that said, sure, there's certain bad things you can tell about him, but he's definitely, working for people. He wants the people to win. He's not supporting the corruption.
No, absolutely. That's a really good point that you raised. And I think that it just shows how much of a farce it is even more, that it's all about the surface. So Biden on the surface looks like a sweet little old man. And a really good example you raised was Trudeau, on the surface. Oh, so likable. He's so charming. He's a complete, won't even go to Trudeau actually, because we might be here for hours. But yeah, the thing with Trump is what you see is what you get. He's crass, he's rude, he's boorish, he's a bit of a lout. He's not very likable. But what he's doing, it's about the work he's doing. It's what he stands for and the changes that he wants to make that are what counts. It's not what he looks like on the surface. It's not about the slick appearance, because like you said, and you mentioned there's a documentary, Biden is a crook. He's part of the mafia. He's got strong connections with China. He's as corrupt as they come. And okay, he looks like a nice man and he's got dogs. Doesn't mean that he's not corrupt. And I think that this is what's going on at the moment. And this is what part of the great divide is that a lot of people want to go along with their lives and just coast along with what is on the surface, what is easy. So go for the candidate who looks nice on the surface. I'm not going to dig any deeper to find out what's really going on underneath. We'll go along with the masks, because it will end soon and everything will go back to normal. It's a real burying your head in the sand kind of reaction. So a lot of the people seem to be voting for, or seem to have voted for Biden, who believe the surface lies. And it just, in these times, it's more and more obvious what is a lie, what is truth. And people that are going along with the lies are just being very, very passive, because I find it really difficult to believe that, like you say, people would vote for Biden. Because when it comes to Trump, yes, he's a businessman, he's ruthless, he's all of these things, but they've thrown accusations at him for the whole 4 years of his presidency, and he's been cleared of all of the accusations. The Russia scandal, all of that. He had no involvement, so how can people continuously see their president being besmirched and dragged through the mud by the media and then cleared, and then it's shown that they haven't got a leg to stand on? There is no basis for the accusations over and over and over again, and not start to question. I think this is the thing that baffles me, is that people aren't, or don't seem to be, questioning the narrative. I think with the big divide, it's one side is questioning things, and okay, sometimes might have a bit of a attitude about it. I've seen some posts from people who have really sort of slated these, awake in inverted commas people for being all smug, throwing attitude at them and this kind of thing. So yeah, I can understand from the other perspective how it could be really annoying. Somebody saying, oh, well, you don't know, you're not awake, you're this, that, and the other. But you have to dig under all that bullshit. And it's not about throwing accusations back and forth. It's about questioning for yourself what is true, what is going on really. And having compassion for people who believe different things to you, but also standing strongly in the knowledge that that what's going on is a complete farce, that it's a lie. Because it just astonishes me, some of the things that people are posting and some of the things that people are saying to me as well. And I'll kind of just stare at them baffled, going, but don't you know that the world is erupting, and it's not erupting in the way that you think it is? So much is going on underneath the surface that is presented, this slick front that's presented by the media and presented by news channels and social media. don't you see it? How can you not see it? Surely all the cracks that are appearing in this veneer are giving you enough of a glimpse through it just to even start questioning. But I think that this is part of the fear as well, because some people are feeling that their foundation is going, because all the things they've believed their whole lives are starting to crumble. So they're holding on to any illusion they possibly can, any kind of control they possibly can. So I think that's why some of the antagonism and the anger is coming out. It's like when somebody shows you that your life is a lie, you want to punch them. It's that sort of reaction, I think, sometimes. And also what Danielle was saying earlier as well about you get promised something and then it gets taken away from you. But it's just, I feel like it's all just a huge cleanse. It really does feel like it's all this, a boiler's burst and everything's just popping out, in a really disgusting analogy type of way. But just there's a lot going on. But yeah, like you say, it's kind of incomprehensible to me. And all the information about Biden's son's laptop as well, all of that. How could you not question the dodginess of that?
People just think it's all fake, and then it's put out there to help Trump win. They just go along with whatever the mainstream media is telling them. Yeah.
To me, it's just showing more and more clearly how the mainstream media just makes shit up. It's all just lies, because it can twist things so much beyond recognition. It might have a grain of truth. Something it reports might have a grain of truth, but it just twists the perspective so much and just pushes that down people's throats. And that people still believe the mainstream media is astonishing to me, really.
I think it's because they don't look at anything else.
It's really good because I have my husband on the other side. So we do have conversation. In the past, we used to fight, but now actually we do have good conversations. And we're kind of accepting each other's side, and less so that we can put some arguments to one side or another. But it's not so much trying to persuade anyone, because we come to the conclusion that we can't. And then I gave a good example about mainstream media, where what's happened in Canada on July 1st, where there was one guy from Ontario. He was a fireman before the election, Trudeau's election. He was actually going to the court to sue Trudeau for some of the corruption that he has done. And what's happened, he went to several courts. Eventually, he went to the highest court. I'm not sure what it's called. Forgive my memory. And what they did, they went and the doors were closed. So they knocked on the door and keep knocking, nothing was happening. And then they see behind the doors, the judges were leaving. And they said, what's happened? We've been waiting, how come? And they said, the judges concluded that there was no presence and the case was closed. So, what do? You go to the court in Canada and there's nothing. And according to our rights, because in the past, the way it used to happen, when there was no police or little police presence, then the actual citizens can go and sue the government. So that's the right that citizens have. They can go and sue the government for wrongdoing. And this case, obviously, this is not happening because the court is being influenced, or the decisions are being influenced by the politics. So you no longer have trust in the legal system. So what they did on July 1st, they actually submitted the documents to the US Embassy, because now there is an agreement between three countries, a trade agreement between Canada, US, and Mexico, and the corruption of one country should be investigated. I mean, I understand right now US has a bunch of its own issues not to investigate Trudeau's corruption, but the fact that what I was trying to say, that's a pretty big news. Don't you think that if you were just looking at the viewers, that could be a nice scandal to write about in the newspaper? So the argument that, it's all about, it might not have been interesting to the general public. I think that would have been very interesting to the general public. But the fact they just said, it was just a demonstration or mask demonstration or something. And they definitely downplayed the amount of people that showed up, although there's people coming from all over provinces. I was watching it. There was groups that were doing carpooling and all of that. So I gave him that example about the media, and he was like, I didn't know that. So, and there's many other examples like that. So you can only trust so much. And unfortunately, and I've seen that in the country where I grew up, very much, although there was some other newspapers where there was the other side. In Canada, you don't see a lot of that from like big mainstream media. It's mostly just one mainstream media. There is other little ones emerging, but they're tiny, and a lot of people don't know about them. And another argument we had is like, well, don't be a rebel. But the truth is, when you look at history, sure, a lot of rebels have been killed then because they're the ones who speak up. But without them, no change would take place. And I understand that, yes, it is being a rebel because you're speaking up. But then you want the truth to come out, right? So that's why it's important to speak up. And sure, it's not safe because you would be the first one targeted, right? And but this is what it is, and this is what has happened throughout the history.
Absolutely, yeah. That's the only way that change happens is people stand up for truth and fight what is wrong, what's tyrannical, what's corrupt, what's, whatever other term you want to put on it. But absolutely, yeah. And you're so right about the media so many times. I mean, even the lockdown, the COVID demonstration that I went to in London in the summer, the figures that were reported were, a few hundred people gathered, where it was 35 to 40,000 people. And the spin on it was not what happened, not what people who were there experienced. So it happens all the time. That's good that you can have those conversations with your husband, though. It's better than, I remember at the beginning you would have big arguments about it, but good that you can now actually.
I think we both have grown up a little bit, and I think we both worked a little bit, so it's not a heated discussion. It's actually just bringing some arguments forward and just discussing them, which is nice.
Yeah, definitely. That's good. And what's it like for you, Danielle, being actually in the country where it's all taking place?
I feel good. I do. I'm excited, and I just feel really giddy, actually. I know for people who don't have kind of access to the same sort of resources that I have, or haven't been looking at the same types of information, it might be a little bit harder for them. But actually, the circles that I communicate in of people who are of like mind, they're all still really positive as well. So I thought that was really nice, because I could see myself, like, if I hadn't had certain bits of information starting to be like really, like, oh no, what's going on? Let the fear kick in. So I'm really impressed by a lot of people who I'm in contact with. Everyone's just so certain that things are going to work out the way that they're supposed to. And I know one close friend who's a little bit more emotional and like freaked out about it, but I just do my best to pass along the information that I find and the things that make me feel more certain in knowing. And I just know it, it's just a great feeling to not have to freak out about it. And I think my mom's hilarious because she's like, I'm not watching any of this stuff anymore. And then she turns on Biden speaking last night. Kamala Harris come out and Biden, and they're speaking about like what they're going to start doing and things like that. And I was just sitting there and I laughed through a lot of it, honestly, because it's just certain things that they say. It's just funny. I feel pretty good about how things are going now. Like I shared before we started recording, I'm a little bit more concerned. And I think maybe I mentioned it earlier about when the results are overturned, which, I mean, they're not overturned because we don't have results yet. But I'm concerned about the people who have bought into what the media is saying about the projection. It's still a projection, and that's what they say too. It's a projected winner. So it's not accurate to call them president and vice president-elect because it's still projected. And I think that that's really what's going to be the biggest issue moving forward, is because people are going to say, what? But they won. And it's like, not yet. I do want to go back to what you were talking about, though, about free elections, because I care a lot about that. I could stomach a Biden win if it was true, like a true win, like if people actually voted for Joe Biden. I'd be like, okay, or the majority of votes. I was like, all right, well, I guess this is where we're going. You just have to go along with it because that's the way it goes. And it's funny because I see a lot of posts of people now talking about unity and like coming together and stuff. And I was like, ooh, I wonder what these posts are going to look like after we find out what's really going on. I was like, I hope some of these people hold on to that idea of, okay, we can be unified now, because I don't see that happening, but it would be beneficial for everyone if they could hold on to that perspective down the line.
And you know what? We had again another thing that came out from our conversation with my husband is he was really surprised because he started watching a little bit on the other side as well, not just one side. Probably still, influenced, by the left. But he's saying that he's watching the other side, and what he was really surprised about is how much support Trump has. He could not believe it. He didn't actually know that. So it just shows so much that there's a huge support for Trump from people. And it seems like those who support Biden, they don't see it. They said, how can you vote for him? Because all they see is the surface, as Kim said, right? So they don't see anything good about him. And there isn't much written in the news, anything. Whatever he does, of course, it's always, the rubbish has been thrown at him. So I was like, really, he've done so much good. I'm not going to go into lots of examples, but there's been a lot of good policies. Really, you can't find anything good in what he's done in 4 years. And another questions I had is like, how come, like just looking at the mainstream media, out of 4 years, the same thing, he hasn't done anything good. It's just not possible. And he's been working hard. Like there was pictures where he was coming home at 2 a.m. He was working very hard, and he put a lot of policies in. Sure, certain things you might not agree with, like coal mining or things like that. But there's so much that he's done. Really just look at the policies, like what he's created. And even like one of the examples that stands out is the support for the victims, right, from the trafficking victims. While Trudeau, what he did, he just cut it out. He just cut the support. And the same instead of one of the things, again, that stand out between the two presidents is Trump decided not to take money for being a president, while Trudeau increased his pay or remuneration in the first few years when he came into power. These are just big things that stand out. But there's, of course, many more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And so many of the things that Trump has done, if it were any other president, it would be headline news all over the world. Things like taking the power away from the Federal Reserve and so many other things that he's done that three Nobel Prizes?
4 nominations for Nobel Peace Prizes for the deals that he's been cutting in the Middle East for peace. And you don't hear about it nearly anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's one of the biggest things that stands out to me. Don't we want world peace? And we were kind of moving in that direction under this guy, and you want him out of here? Like, I'm not entirely understanding that.
But it's the slant of it, it's the media slant on it, because now so many people are posting about, now Biden's won, now we can have world peace, now we can have unity, now we can have, it's like, but no, you're going to become China. I'm sorry, but if that's what you want.
It would be like the colonized by China, essentially. Yeah.
You know what I found astonishing? That people keeps, like those that I know say, oh, all U.S. has done is created wars just to get money out of this. And the same people would support Biden. I was like, really? Really?
Yeah, I know. It's complex, I think, because I think like the United States as a country of people gets conflated, and even the government too, with the interests of very wealthy people, because I'd say the reason that the wars exist aren't solely one country versus another, although the United States has a lot of power, and I do believe that we go into countries and we fund opposition so we can overthrow governments and install the people that we want in there. The United States, I think, though, is more used as a tool by these people who don't necessarily, I don't think they see themselves as citizens of one country or another. I think a lot of them actually have many citizenships, or they're, we're in different countries, and it's just a giant game to them. How can they make more money? They fund both sides of wars. The more conflict there is, the more money they can make. So they're not going to be happy with Trump creating peace. So they're going to throw everything that they have at him, because it's the whole power structure. It's coming down, and the only way that they could stop it is by getting him out of power. So they have to do their best to use their mouthpiece, which is mainstream media, to get their propaganda essentially out there and make sure that people vote according to the way they want them to. And that's the thing, is I also don't think that a lot of people voted the way they wanted them to. I think there's a lot of stuff going on that is fraudulent ballots, software that has bugs in it. It's being covered. Some of it I think maybe is making it onto mainstream media, but probably not a lot.
But yeah, it's definitely being investigated. Isn't there a lawsuit starting on Monday? Or something?
That's what I've seen.
Details, but
yeah. Supposedly there's supposed to be legal actions. Just Trump's going to go full swing, I guess, starting Monday. I don't know. It's just the stuff that I'm looking at, I feel good about. I look at the number of people that were attending his rallies. Massive crowds. They're massive. And I was like, there's no way that I feel like this race is as close as it was. And even if it was this close, there's no way that Trump lost. I just don't see it.
And this is what I've seen too, and this is the main argument that, Biden is just very responsible. He doesn't want the spread of the disease. Therefore, he creates the circles. And I'm thinking, well, when somebody truly loves the president, they're not even afraid of the virus. They love him so much that they're ready to go and show up and show the support for the president, which is really, really astonishing.
yeah. But it goes to show, I think it just goes to show how much the media, though it tries, doesn't have as much power as it thinks it does. Especially in these times of great change, people are just seeing through it. They're not following the blinkered line. They're not towing the line as they should, in inverted commas. And it's great. Like you say, watching all the videos of Trump's rallies, thousands and thousands and thousands of people, shoulder to shoulder, not wearing masks, all of that, which is brilliant. And, surely the media would show Biden rallies as, they'd try and twist it so they looked full, but they couldn't even do that because there were 10 people there. It was just not possible. Yeah, it's interesting times we live in. But like you said, Danielle, I feel that you just have to trust what you know, because it's so easy to get swayed by all the fear or the anger or the attempts at manipulation. But I feel that you just have to stay firm in the core and just trust what you know is true. Trust your own senses. Trust your own research. Trust your own knowing, Because I've had a few friends who have been Trump supporters kind of contact me in the last few days just going, oh my God, Kim, what's happening? What's going on? Why is Trump losing? All this stuff. And it's just, I understand them being swayed because there's so much out there to sway them, but you can't let that happen.
I think that just kind of comes from not having as solid of a knowing or as much trust in your own knowing. Because I do it with other things too, right? Is I'll jump into the mind and I'm like, but this isn't lining up, with the way I think it should look. So how could this truth that I know inside be what it is? So I could find it easy to get pulled in a certain directions and be like, oh no, what's going on? But it's just not happening for me for this. I went to sleep pretty excited last night. I woke up pretty excited this morning, just ready for what's going to happen. The only nervousness I have is what I expressed earlier, and it's about what will happen when it comes out, how people will react.
And what I think will happen, of course, right now that Biden is being declared, although Trump does say go to demonstrations and things like that, so far we haven't seen much violence, right? But if the results will overturn, we're more likely to see the violence. But of course, the media will tweak it and say, look, it's all the Trump supporters, because Trump said go to demonstrations and this and that. I can totally see that. But they'll tweak it that it's all Republicans, it's not Democrats, even though right now you don't see any violence.
But it's all change. Again, that will be more reasons to question.
Hopefully. Yeah. I'm starting to wonder. I'm like, what can I do? Because I do as much as I can with sharing pieces of information to the people who actually follow me on social media or I'm connected with. I'm like, what kinds of information can I put in front of them? I try to do things that might have a little bit of an opening, of being just take a look at this. Like maybe you have a question here, instead of going like so far kind of off the deep end and trying to get them believe something that I'm like, there's no way they're going to believe that if they can't even open their eyes to this. But that's my biggest question, and kind of probably the thing that I struggle with the most is, how can I help the people that I know and I care about who believe what the mainstream media is putting out to start opening up to this? Because it sucks to be in that state of shock, because that's what it's going to be, in my opinion, for a lot of people when that comes out. It's going to be that massive amount of rejection, not wanting to look at it, not wanting to see the truth. There's crazy amounts of dissonance, and it's not going to be a good time. So I'd like to try to help them circumvent some of that by opening up a little bit. But now that the media has projected Biden the winner, I don't know what I can do, honestly.
I think at this point we can just sit and wait and watch the show.
I'll have to give up my desire. My desire for other people not to suffer. So I just won't judge what I see on the surface. I'll say that that's the right path and karma for them, and that's what they needed to experience.
Trust the plan, right? As we say, we do believe that good will win over evil, because this planet has been ruled by the evil for such a long time. There's no equilibrium. And this planet is a planet of contrasts. I understand there'll always be evil, but it's been in power way too long. And this has to change. And Trump is the one who is doing that change.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it is changing. And there's only so much you can do, in that some people are just going to refuse to see anything other than what they believe to be true. And you can't change their minds. You can't make them see differently. So I think, like you said, it's just letting go of the desire to help them change or help them see. Because at this stage, I feel that it's either people knowing for themselves, realizing for themselves, because of seeds that might have been planted, or because of questions that might arise, or because of actual things happening, that to some degree it's a watching now. You know, before there was a lot more of a let's post things, let's put truth out, but to me it feels like now we're in that not limbo state, but in a place where it's about a holding center, holding what you know to be true, and just being that, while everyone around you runs around like headless chickens, if they do, you know, because there just has to be a stillness. I feel that in my situation, where the people I'm encountering and the exchanges I'm having, I've been feeling since all week actually, just more and more still, more and more silent, very, very firmly kind of quiet yet solid. And so people have been saying all sorts of stuff to me, all sorts of emotions have been rolling over me, people panicking, people gleeful, people whatever. And I've just let them say things, because it's like a spark to a flame, you know. It's kind of, if people are getting really heated and really emotional, or really angry or really upset about what's happening, and I say something that just sets a spark to it, boom, there'll be an explosion. And it feels that just holding what I know to be true, not necessarily saying anything, just kind of going, okay, just somehow is the better path right now for me to follow. And that might change, you know, might change to, you know, to arguments, who knows, but right now it just feels like, you know, being very, very still and very silent, and just letting people's waves batter you, you know, and going, yep. Okay.
Yeah, I have had periods of that too, where it's just like, okay, well, now's not the time. It's just to kind of observe and see what else is going on. And then sometimes there's impulses or inspiration to kind of share certain things. It's just, you know, like you said, when we're posting things on Facebook, it's like something just hits you as true, and you're like, I gotta send that along. Yeah. It's kind of like that. It's like, yeah, this might be something that people would want to see. Okay, let's move this. And there's certain things I only share in smaller circles too, for people who I know who are either, like I shared that my friend who's a little more fearful, like I'll send her certain posts because I'm like, I know this will like help reassure her, and she can, you know, chill out a little bit more, because it's going to be a while, you know, and being in that heightened state of stress for, I don't know, however long this is going to go on to. I'm going to guess maybe a couple months. It's not healthy. So I just try to support her a little bit and be like, here, you know, it's going to be okay.
Talking about fear, what I wanted to say, that at the beginning, definitely when the results were showing up, I was going into that fear. I was like, oh, what's going to happen? And I remember praying really, really hard. And then I got to the point, I was like, I just don't care. I'm not even going to watch it. I'm just going to let it unfold, because I was feeling myself obviously into that whole emotional drama, which I didn't want to go to. Or not necessarily, not that I just don't want to support that, right? We need to hold the center and not to be part of the emotions. So at that point, I disconnected, and I didn't even see the results at some point that it was over 270, so the amount that one of the president needs to have in waters to win. And again, this is all projected; it's not real yet. And I only found out about it later. I saw some of the posts and this and that. It's important to hold your center. And I like what Aradimus said about being the third, let's call it the third stage of labor. At this point, no one is in control. You just have to see and wait and see what comes out, and hold the center and pray.
And it's the messiest stage. It's the kind of the most action-packed stage, as I understand it. I feel that praying is good, but also just knowing what's going to happen, holding on to what you know is going to happen, what you know is true. Because it's just going to get even more down and dirty. It's not going to be the Queensberry Rules fight. It's going to be, gouging and kicking and punching and ear pulling and all that kind of stuff. And we just have to, like you said, just watch it happen and not get pulled in any direction.
I can't help but feel excited. I've been kind of committed to just enjoying everything that's going on. I don't know, it's just kind of been fun to see certain things and hear different perspectives on what's going on, because we still have people who are a little bit more on the right, who are commentating on everything that's going on. And oh my God, some of it is just so funny. The way that things are put, it's just been striking me. It's just so funny. I don't know, I just can't find myself in a place of being too concerned about it. But one other thing I wanted to say, because Katya, you said you weren't really watching it, and I was kind of doing the same thing. I wasn't looking for results. I was I know it's going to be a while. Nothing's going to be certified for a long time. But every single app I opened on my phone for social media was projected winner, projected winner, projected winner. And I was So I couldn't even not seek out results if I wanted to. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? It was just all right there. But yeah, also in reading it, I'm it says projected. And it's funny because I had another friend of mine reach out to me, and she's like, is everyone missing the fact that it says projected in all of these announcements? And I was I don't know. I guess they're just choosing not to see it. I was I don't know what to say. They're just, I guess, choosing not to see it. And when you were speaking before, Kim, you said people need to see or learn things and open to it on their own. And I do think that we're in a place where it's personal choice. So us just being where we're at, and so I can't even really do anything to influence other people. It is now in their hands. They have to choose.
Yeah, I feel that is true. Yeah. And it's all just a game as well. I know it's all serious and it's all, affects the world, but it's just a game because none of it's real. It's all just bullshit, There is that aspect too. But yeah, like you said, Danielle, I feel very positive about it. And the light is just incredible. The light is increasing daily, hourly, as more and more darkness is just being illuminated. So it feels like we're in very exciting times. We're in some ways quite privileged to be alive in these times of huge change, though they'll be difficult. But just to see the victory of the light is going to be amazing.
Mm-hmm. Just keep expressing my excitement. That's all I can do. I just agree with you that I feel like the light is undeniable. That's all. I feel like that's where my excitement's coming from, because I'm oh, everything's so bright. I can tell that that's what we're moving into, and I'm I don't see that with the Biden presidency. So I'm I know it's gonna be fine, because I was I can feel all of this light. It's I know it's there. I know that's where we're going. It's just depending on how we're gonna get there.
Yeah, and it's not down to us to predict or know what it's going to be like, but it's just faith and trust and feeling excited.
And that's kind of what I alluded to before, is I would be okay with a Biden presidency if that was what was in alignment with all of this light, because I'd know that we're at whatever direction we're going in, that's where we're ending up. Like that's the destination. So but I don't see that. It doesn't feel like that's in alignment with getting us to where we're going to end up. Just waiting, watching, laughing.
There's so much light that's here now, you know. When I look at it, it's kind of, I don't see Trump as Trump, I just see light. But when I look at Biden, it's just like this cardboard little cutout man, you know. There's no substance there at all.
I don't believe that is Joe Biden. Like when I look back on him and actually look at him doing like speeches and stuff as a politician, I don't know up until when, but at some point it's like they switched him out for whatever we see in front of us today. And I'm like, that's not Joe Biden. I'm like, I don't know what that is, but it's not him. And it's funny because I didn't follow politics before like a year ago, but still somehow I can tell that that's not Joe Biden.
Yeah, well, you get a sense because there's no soul there. There's no spark of life. There's no humanity there. It's just a walking, talking robot.
Yeah, you know what's kind of interesting about that? Because you're talking about people doing surface things, right? Like seeing only things on the surface. And for him, I feel like there is only surface, and maybe that's
Yeah, exactly.
why, because they're so comfortable living their lives on the surface, and that's all he is. So he feels very familiar to them.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. That's what I was trying to say. Thank you for saying that. But yeah, absolutely. There is that connection because he's all surface. People want the surface. They just want to know that everything looks good on paper, as it were, or, you know, the image is good and fine. And then they can just ignore it and forget about it and get on with their lives. And it's just cardboard cutouts. It's like a little puppet show. It's not real. There's no depth there. But if you kind of, you know, peel back the surface, there's so much going on underneath that people that don't want to see just refuse to look at. So they're just skimming the surface, and it's a way of life as well, you know, because all of the things that are being pushed, all of the causes and all of that, like the Black Lives Matter and so many other causes, people are getting really up in arms. All the surface people are getting really up in arms about all of that because that's what they're being directed to believe. And it's all just so fake. I mean, just looking at it, it's part of the puppet show. It's like, I'll prod that puppet. Okay, they'll just start moving that way, you know. And we'll probably get listeners who will hate this opinion of what we're talking about, but it's just, there's no soul to it. There's no Atman, there's no depth, there's no reality to it. And that's why it's all a game, because, you know, it's basically truth and lies. Who's going to win? Truth is going to win because lies have no substance. Truth and light, who can battle that?
Yeah, right. It'd be a pretty tough battle. But as you were speaking, I kind of something clicked for me because we spend a lot of time on social media, and that is a lot of surface stuff, particularly Instagram, which is all pictures. Most all is pictures. And so there's not a lot of substance there. People will show you the snapshots of their best moments in life, right? And now you have this story that you've created for yourself that you can look back at all of these surface images and say, oh yeah, I was having a great time. Or you're just going to show people the good stuff. So I feel like there's a connection there between the surface, people being comfortable on the surface, and then they're creating kind of this online persona through their social media that only shows a lot of surface stuff most of the time. It's just, there's something there.
Well, definitely, because it's all projected. Everything's projected. It's, you know, talking about the results being projected. This made me laugh the first few times I saw it. It's like the projected results. Yes, they are. They're on a screen. They're not even real, you know, but it is like that. It's the social media personas that people are putting on. All ties in with this perspective of themselves that they want to be seen as. And it's all a little neat little box. It's a flat little box. I have this great life. I surf, I swim, I walk in the forest, I do this, I support Black people, I support Biden because he stands for truth. All this stuff is all just bullshit. And it's all part of the propaganda as well. We're fed that this is what we're supposed to project, you know, because this is what Instagram was created for. It's to create little fake stories that aren't true. And even when you see those Instagram real and projected contrasts, you know, people sitting there looking all happy with their friends and then sitting there wrapped in a blanket with a cold, you know, kind of thing. Even those are fake because they're sort of staged, you know, so none of it's true, none of it's real. And that's what we're doing. We're living in this fake world where everything's just surface and slick and fast. and it has to be sound bites and everything has to fit into the right boxes, you know. And then along comes Trump, who fits into absolutely none of them. And he's reviled and ridiculed because he's truth, because he's himself. He's so undeniably himself.
That's why I think a lot of people liked him too, though. It was the authenticity that's there. People don't want fake people. I truly believe that people want depth and authenticity, you know.
I think people say they want it, but I think people are afraid of it because
I think they're afraid of it. Yes, I agree with that.
It takes a lot of vulnerability. It needs a lot of vulnerability. And people say they want things that they don't necessarily want. So they'll go for the cardboard cutout version of it, you know, the sanitized version of it. So I think, some people definitely like Trump for his authenticity, yes, but the surface people who don't, they fear what he brings up in them. You know, I feel, because he's very primal. There's something very primal about him. There's no sophistication. There's no slickness. You know, he's a successful businessman, but he doesn't have that kind of veneer of marketing patter kind of thing. He just comes out and says what he thinks. People are afraid of that. I think people are afraid of what's real, what's true. They say they want it. They say they want reality. They want truth. They want love, but they don't. They want the safe version of those things. Mm-hmm. And the safe version is what's presented on, you know, Instagram. It's like, oh, look, the love story. They're two people kissing on the beach and the sun setting. How gorgeous, you know, rather than two people in bed with the flu feeling like shit. Mm-hmm. You know, it's totally different. The truth versus, I'm not saying that, you know, you can't kiss on the beach and all that, but you know, the presentation of it, the projection of it. Mm-hmm. So I think that's one of the things I feel is being uncovered at the moment, is all of that. The fakeness, the projection, the unreality, and what is really true. And like Aratima posted the other day, she was saying, you know, some spiritual teachers are lost in the psychic realm. There's no real truth there, you know, and that it is all part of the contrast. It's black and white now. Everything is being shown as one or the other. There's no shades of gray. And you have to know who you are. You have to choose to know who you are. And truth is not fluffy. Truth is not slick. Truth is not a projection. Truth is not a kind of a well put together marketing video. Truth can be really dirty. Truth can be difficult. It can be ugly, in inverted commas. But the important thing is to know that it's truth. You know, you feel that resonance with it. And I think some people want to know truth, but the truth has to be sanitized and truth has to be presented in such a way to make them feel good about themselves, whereas truth does none of those things. Truth will reveal all the areas you lie to yourself, all the areas that you're crap, all the areas where you're not really standing in truth. It illuminates it all, and it's when you have to look at yourself and go, oh God, I'm actually quite ugly in some parts, you know. That's a difficult thing for people to do. People don't want to do that. They want to go, oh no, it's lovely, sunsets, it's nice little old men with German Shepherd dogs, you know. So anyway, I'm rambling.
No, I think you're right. And I was just thinking also about conditioning, like with the social media. So being conditioned to put out a certain version of yourself, but also being conditioned by what you're seeing on it. Yeah. So like different things, like when you scroll through, it starts to shape your perception of what reality is like or what you should be expecting from life. And I find that to be really dangerous because as a young person, you know, like say watching Disney movies or something, right? They get married and it's happily ever after. They don't talk about what happens after the princess and the prince get married. And they rarely ever go into like children or like what it takes to, you know, keep a marriage together, things like that, or just aging in general. Like beyond that point, we don't really get a lot of that for the most part. And that can be difficult sometimes for me because it's like when looking outside for some sort of measurement of like what life looks like at certain points. So I think when some people have that or perceive to have something like that, like through social media, then it sets up certain expectations that I don't think are realistic. So I do understand how there are those posts which are also staged, where it's like, you know, I'm thinking of one in particular where it's like what Instagram gets and it shows like the girl like all done up or whatever. And it's like what my boyfriend gets and it shows her like in sweats, like without makeup on. And I'm like, well, at least that's out there to kind of level set a little bit more into reality. That even these people who look amazing on Instagram all the time, they're not going to look like that for you always in real life.
Yeah. I agree. But it's all connected, you know, social media, Instagram, Hollywood, all of that. It's eternal youth. It's all holding on to something that's not real, not true, you know, so it's always looking beautiful, always looking young. Even when you're looking rough in inverted commas, you're still staging it though, you know, so it's not a real looking rough. I mean, it's kind of, you know, the ones that you see people posting photos of, oh, this is me when I just got out of bed with 16 layers of makeup and their hair done. And, you know, it's none of it's real. Everything's all about this hard veneer surface slickness. And it's just time it breaks. And I feel that it is breaking now. And I'm so glad.
Yeah, I'm excited for it. It'll be nice.
Yeah.
It'll be messy, like you said, but I think it'll go quickly, like quicker than people might think that it would.
Yeah. But it's still, you know, I guess we still have to remember it's a marathon, not a sprint, in that, you know, it's not going to be done tomorrow. So
Yeah. I just mean like the initial kind of transition. I think that'll go quicker. And then of course it's going to be, in my mind, a slow rollout of everything else. Yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. So that was our conversation about the election, about Trump, about Biden, about truth, about lies. We went around the houses a little bit. If you like what you hear, please do subscribe to our YouTube channel and click the bell so you get notified about all of our upcoming podcasts. Do share with your friends, and did I say like? And like us. Thank you. I have a block about like, apparently.
That is the one that you missed on the last one too, right? She's like, and like us.
Yeah.